So very welcome to this session where we're going to talk about how we can calculate which project you should start on, which I think is a huge challenge for most companies to see where we need to start first. But okay, let me first ask Valerie to introduce himself. I always rather that you, because there is too much to tell about you, but please elaborate us. Who are you and what is your background?
All right, thanks, Yves. I think some people already know me who are here with us. My name is Valeri Souchkov, and during the last 30 years, I've been working with systematic innovation, the early phase of innovative design, both for technology and engineering, as well as for business and management. And the theoretical background of what I do is TRIZ, yeah, TRIZ, theory of solving inventive problems. I'm sure that many who are with us today know about it. And major activities of mine have been consulting. I helped over 150 companies with, innovative projects, helping them either to investigate innovative potential of products or businesses, and come up with new innovative ideas for a change, for innovation, for innovative improvement. And the second big part of my activity is training. Actually, today it takes around 80% of my, um, let's say, of my company revenues. And again, training TRIZ, training other activities, training other methods which are complementary with TRIZ. And in total, well, I work with approximately 650 customer companies in more than 50 countries. That's my background. And the third, let's say, big part of my activity is participation in different associations which have been established to promote TRIZ and systematic innovation approach around the world. So that's my competence, areas of competence.
Thank you.
Thanks, Yves.
Thank you very much, Valerie. Let me introduce myself a bit. So as a background, I'm a civil engineer in physics, but I soon started to come up with, or to try to come up with creativity. And I first was immersed in classical creativity and thinking of the Bono. And in '99, we came with the first time we found the Glenn Mazur website about TRIZ. So this sparked some ideas to get more, to know more about TRIZ. And then from then onwards, I first, because we're in Belgium, followed the CREX session with Daryl Mann. This was my first real getting to know TRIZ. And afterwards, I started to connect with ideation. I also followed the course with Valerie. And I tried to upgrade my own TRIZ thinking during the years. So partly I am also a trainer consultant, but in 2013, I decided to create a company of my own called Archite. This is a startup company, and there are about 20 people now. I quit the company and I'm going to start with a new startup company. So in fact, I'm a bit dualistic on training, consulting versus doing it myself. Okay, so let me see. Let's get to the first program for today. What we're going to do basically is I have about 3 steps. Besides saying hello to everybody, and at a certain moment it would be nice to see all the live pictures, so Valerie can take a picture from the screen that we can all wave, something like that at the end maybe, or in the beginning. I don't know what you prefer, Valerie. And let's say we're going to talk a bit, not too long, about the background of improvements, not very long. It's very short introduction, and then we're going to start with some foreground thinking, which is mainly based on the Trizian thinking. And then we go underground to see some results on how can we calculate where we should start. And then we end up around 8 o'clock, where you can ask some first level questions. And of course, we'll give you, if possible, first level answers. Okay, so let's start. So welcome. So how do you start improving your business? Well, I must tell you that why do I care? Well, I care because when I started learning about TRIZ and I discovered the contradiction matrix and all the other more elaborate tool sets that you can find in TRIZ, I was always astonished with the fact that, for instance, from a parameter point of view, you're not interested in cost. Cost is, as I recall, cost is something that every parameter can be linked to. So you don't look too much at cost, you're trying to solve a technical issue or a technical problem. You're trying to get out of a technical problem and find some innovative solution. Although I experienced a different pathway from my customers. My customers wanted me not to come up with technological solutions, yes, but they wanted to have a technical solution which gave them the most benefit. So quickly I started seeing, okay, I want to have, on the one hand, technical thinking, but on the other hand, I also need like a financial thinking or a method to quickly find where you can have a big solution, where you can have a big, not solution, but a big gain. So this is the reason why I started investigating value analysis, value engineering. And later on in this training, you will see some examples that are derived from that, which are trying to actually focus first on where's the money. Because if you focus too much on an issue, but if it's not really a financial big problem for the company, why should you bother? So there is a kind of a third factor that actually determines whether you start with something or not. And what I want to do is to discuss with you all about how to focus on smart business cases. And with business cases, I mean where you can gain a lot of money. And smart means understanding what it is about. And I think TRIZ helps you understanding what's about. It's also about stepping back. So the total approach is trying to understand the complete picture, not of the problem, but first of the company. Where is the company going? What's happening? Where is the money flowing? And then by taking the right project, gaining time. And also resources, because many people normally are allocated to solving issues. And together with TRIZ and powerful thinking techniques, you can come up with some solutions. So I will give some, I think 3 cases I've done myself in companies, besides a general case, which I will present as an example. So it's more example-based, and you can derive the theoretical background from the cases I'm going to give you. Okay, so let's start. But first, I think it would be interesting to get some background going, and let's see where companies normally start with first improving their business. And what I have encountered is something like this. The most small companies that I also encounter, and with small, I mean from 5 people to, let's say, 200 people, sometimes they don't have any improvement plan. They just work and do the routine every day, which is strange. But people are sometimes more concerned with the product than with the process, or at least trying to make a good product and the rest will come. And at least that's what they think. On the other hand, most companies know something about Lean, Six Sigma, world-class manufacturing, total productive maintenance. And I also had a bath during the 90s of these techniques, where I first was like a tool head trying to see which tool I can use now. But today I have a different viewpoint on that. Some companies go one step further and they use like a value stream map to overview the complete company, which is good. But on the other hand, okay, they start with a big picture and then zoom into the big issues, which is a good thing. But most companies I know are just using one technique, and something like 5S or Kaizen, trying to come up with some ideas, and they gather some people together and solve some issues. It's pretty random today. I also know, for instance, from DEFECT that they were using ID boxes. So if you had some ideas, you could put your idea into a box. And the thing was, the ideas that came out of those boxes were mainly safety related issues or quality related issues, but they were never really customer related or efficiency related. Of course not, because it would harm themselves. So they're not interested to define a lot of efficiency ideas. And okay. But what are the pitfalls? What are the things that I've seen in companies, and what are the pitfalls according to me? Now, well, what I've seen is that those companies, and especially the bigger they are, the more they are doing this, is that they only solve issues within one department. So they even allocate issues they got from their customer to a specific department, and that specific department has to solve the issue. That's a pitfall for me. Another one is that after they have, let's say, eliminated a lot of waste, which is a popular term, they got stuck. A lot of big companies today are getting stuck because the traditional methods are not giving them any answers anymore. They've done all they can, and they can over-optimize. They over-apply the methodologies. I also saw that at Packard, where they introduced Six Sigma, and they had to apply Six Sigma in any corner they found. And at that moment, it was also about time study. So they had to apply Six Sigma to time study. So you're trying to push something which is not meant for it in a certain direction. Another idea that most companies have is that they want to have a one-size-fits-all, which is, of course, impossible. And what is strangely enough happening most of the time, I think of all the cases I've done, almost all the cases I've done, they always ask me to help in some internal question. They're not looking at the customer. So even though Lean and Six Sigma is promoting voice of the customer and focus on your customer, we quickly drop it and try to look at how can we have a cost savings. So I have done a lot of cost savings, and I can't find many examples of Lean or Six Sigma actually helping the customer, which is a bit strange, because that's basically what the methodologies promote. And I also encountered, if the managers or the directors are not on the same page, you have a very large difficulty to set up improvement in the company. And last but not least, they start up with a lot of improvements with Kaizen groups or whatever, and you have all those different kind of improvements, but I'm missing the money. The systems don't promote enough to calculate where's the money. And sometimes they need to calculate some money. They want to have some gain, but it's not the first focus. It's the last focus. They say, okay, we won so much and we had the payback of that. And this is what I want to reverse. Okay. To even quote Ono, and this is what I call the Ono effect of focus. If you focus too much on writing down a technology or a methodology, you will think that's the only thing you need to do. Just apply the methodology. And I think Ono was right. I see a lot of companies that are blindly following the rules that they're getting from some tool set without thinking it through and trying to understand what's really happening. So I think you could call this the Ono effect of focus. And I see this a lot in companies, at least in my opinion. And when you do a lot of improvements in companies, so one way to have a lot of gain in a company would be like do a lot of projects. And the more projects you do, the more gain you will have. But of course, you have a limited set of resources. Small companies don't have the luxury to allocate people on many projects, Large companies from 1,000 to 2,000 people, they have the luxury to do that. But even though they have a lot of improvements, this doesn't mean that they save money. It even doesn't mean that the employees are more concerned. They're not. Even the customers are not always served better. And I even would say they're not actually innovating, they're just improving. You need to make a step further. They sometimes don't understand the problem, but they have a solution, and it happens. You can find a solution without really understanding the problem. So it doesn't mean that if you have a lot of improvements, they actually solved the real issue. And I think this would be the biggest advantage, to use the complete mindset of the TRIZ thinking to fully exploit it. But before to exploit it, you need to know where to exploit it. So let's try to understand where we need to focus on. Okay. So what should we focus on? Well, I think we should focus on acquiring more and having a better match with customers. And besides that, we can also decrease costs. That's not wrong to do that. And in the meantime, it would be very nice to improve the employees' involvement, or to get like a culture going, an improvement culture. This would be great. But today we're overwhelmed with an enormous set of solutions from the Industry 4.0 direction. I've listed about 10 or at least 9 technological solutions that are actually popping out, and you're today almost hit and slammed left or right with one of those different techniques. By the way, I started a company called Archite that is using augmented reality. But okay, the problem that I encountered as Archite was, at a certain moment, I was invited for a company and they told me, okay, Yves, we're very interested in your technology. I said, thank you very much. Okay, just come in and show us your stuff. Showed what we could do. Say, yeah, that's great. We want to have this. We want to buy this. And then I said, fantastic. So what's your problem? I said, sorry? Well, we don't really have a problem, but you know what? Just walk around in production and see what you can do, and we'll make it happen. And that's the moment I thought, well, this is not how I want to sell the product. I want to sell the product as a solution for a problem, but not as a showcase. So I think companies really need to understand, where's the problem? What is the problem? Where are problems to be solved and what we need to tackle? So unfortunately, I see too much today, the same wheel coming back as we saw earlier with all the tools. You can see today managers spinning the wheel, the jackpot saying, okay, what we're going to do today? Oh, let's try digital twin. Maybe that's interesting. I hope that's not the case, but I think it is. At least from my point of view, a lot of Flemish large companies are applying some of those tools, technologies, I should say, and some of them are showcases. It's not like they're really fully based on their methodology yet. So I would say, what's the status of Industry 4.0 in Belgium or in Flanders? I would say not that very high, by the way. I think we can go a long way. And we have luckily we have somebody here in the group called Jan Lamotte, who might also have some different viewpoint on that, but maybe you can shed some ideas later on. Okay, so let's take the next step. And I think you all will be at the edge of your chair saying, we've been there, done it, so we can shed the old truths and leave our comfort zone and take some action to the next step and see some money. By the way, if you talk about money, management is very interested. The more money, the more they're interested. So you need to define the business cases first. And then afterwards, if you have defined the projects, you can see how can tools and technologies help me to solve this issue. And then we need to implement it and spread it around. So let's go and get those challenges based on high gain. Okay, to do that, I think what I've done is using trees as an abstract way of thinking to come up with a approach that I'm able to analyze a company without having to deal with all the detailed product facilities or aspects of the product. I encountered many people that are very into product thinking, but I'm missing the process and I'm missing the attributes thinking. So one step further would be the foreground. So let's focus on functions and attributes. Now, why those? Well, let's explain this. But first, I want to give the floor to Valerie, because I also wanted to include a bit the next level of trees. And maybe you can, Valerie, elaborate a bit on this slide, if you would not mind.
Sure, I can. And definitely, I think that some people who are here already know what is on the picture. First of all, of course, this I want to say is that today TRIZ is a rather large body of knowledge, and at least in the package which I personally use, and not just personally, of course, but my partners and my students, we have approximately 30 different tools, right? But all these tools could be combined into 3 groups. So when do we apply TRIZ? Like I already mentioned, TRIZ is today for those part of a process of creation or improvement where we need to find new ideas. And the origins of TRIZ were in as follows from the title, Theory of Solving Inventive Problems. The origins were and are in the set of methods and tools on how to solve specific problems. What sort of problems? It could be technical problems, it could be business problems, and those problems which you recognize as something must be improved, but you do not know means or solutions on how to improve it. Or you know a solution, but this solution cannot be or may not be applied due to certain restrictions, because well, something else might get worse. For example, taking a bicycle tire, right? A very common problem I'm talking here about. We are in Holland and Belgium using bicycles a lot, and you know that the bicycle tire is very unreliable. It is reliable, but sometimes when you move on a sharp object, you know what is happening. So the question is, can we develop a tire which is not affected by these sharp objects? And the question is, and the answer is yes, we know such solutions. Let's make a tire made fully from rubber, right? So it doesn't have any air inside. So there is no air, nothing go out. But the question is that if you make the tire from the rubber, completely from the rubber, then its dampening features will get much worse. So you see, by winning in something, you are losing something. So it's not a win-win solution. And when we look around, we of course might see solutions which help you to make such tires, which are impenetrable and still have some gas like air inside. But now you look at cost of such solutions and you realize that such tires would not fit the mass market. But we want to improve the situation for the mass market. So we're stuck. And we call these situations conflicts when we put two, let's say, requirements which oppose each other. Like coffee. Coffee must be hot, so it has perfect taste. But on the other hand, the hot coffee can burn my mouth and my tongue. Not good. So on one hand, coffee must be hot to prevent its beautiful taste, but on the other hand, it must be cold so it doesn't burn my mouth. So such situations are everywhere. And TRIZ suggested the way how we solve such problems, rather than looking for innovative solutions, trying to apply thinking from the scratch. TRIZ proposes the way how to formulate such problems and then how to use patterns collected during many years of studies of how similar problems are solved in different areas of industry or business, if we are talking about business. And then we transfer to our situation not a specific solution, but a abstract solution, a pattern. And then by having this pattern, we start moving to a specific level and solve our problem. This way, we are able to drastically cut time for searching for new innovative solutions because we reuse previous information, which actually the major power of TRIZ is that it guides us to the area of strong solutions directly. And this helps to accelerate the process of creating new innovations or inventive ideas, innovative ideas, many times. This is a major benefit of TRIZ. But this is, you see in this circle, which is on the left, solving specific problems. But TRIZ as a theory and methodology had been developing over many years. And today we not only have TRIZ is not only limited to the tools to solve problems, we also have tools to understand the innovation potential of your products or your businesses. And we have analytical tools, such as, for example, function analysis, such as parameter value of analysis, and several different ways of analysis, which are also based on some solid theoretical background. So by understanding, by looking and analyzing systems, for example, we take again the bicycle tire. I can build a model of this tire to analyze its functional relationships and to identify all the problems which relate to the bicycle tire. And then I could formulate these problems, I could rank them and select most critical ones. And then again to go to the blue circle and use techniques to solve formulated problems. And on the right hand, you see the red circle. Red circle is even more. TRIZ has been there for over 60 years, and TRIZ developers found those trends which govern the evolution or development of innovative products, right? So it means that if you take two similarly different products, like a microchip or, well, the washing machine, they're very different, right? But the trends of development of these two similarly different products appear to be the same. So by knowing these trends, which are represented in TRIZ as lines of evolution with certain patterns, which move from one pattern to another pattern, you can take these patterns and apply it to your products. And this way, you could not just predict how your products will be in future, but also to have kind of a conceptual solutions, right? Not exactly, not specific solutions, but at least you know how things are going to move ahead in all the areas, including yours. So this gives us to predict, not only predict, but also design future solutions and drastically lower the risks, right? That this will be failures because these solutions would reside on the common lines of evolution. So these tools, all three sorts of tools, they of course can be learned and used. And this is what we call modern TRIZ. Thank you, Yves.
Yeah, thank you very much, Valerie. So to summarize some aspects of that, one of them is, why should you solve problems if you would have like a standard set of solutions, and if you were able to redefine your problem to a standard problem that might have been solved before. And this got me thinking, and because I was dwelling a lot with function attribute analysis, or function analysis, as I like to call it, I started thinking on, okay, how could I use this idea to map a complete company? And what I came up with was, it's impossible it's not impossible. It's possible, but the point is, if you look at objects, there are many objects. There are an infinite number of objects, and you could define a small deviation on object as a different object. So there are a lot of different objects, but those objects from a function attribute analysis idea, or subject verb object, or subject action verb, you would say, okay, this is very concrete, but every object will perform some type of function, and the function is a verb. And a verb, well, in fact, this started me thinking on, could I look up all the verbs? It should be finite. The number of objects is infinite, but the number of verbs could be finite. And in fact, I found out in Longman's dictionary, I used the technical dictionary. I looked up all technical verbs, and I found about 742 technical verbs. And I used those verbs to categorize and to start thinking on, can I group them, or can I use this idea as a defined set of verbs? And of course, Trizian thinking will learn that the bicycle example of Valeri just now, this is a technology to transport yourself. But there are different technologies that will deliver the same function. So the interesting part would be not to look at the objects, but to look at technologies as a group, not at objects, but technologies, and see how many technologies we can find that deliver the same function. And if you know the verb, and if you have a specific technology that delivers a specific verb, you could find other technologies that will deliver the same specific verb. So function thinking is an abstract way of looking at a company. And functions lead to the change of an attribute. So objects are changed by a function in that sense that an attribute will have changed. So an attribute is another aspect that is not a verb. So you're not able to touch it as an object. It's not tangible object that you can touch. As a function is also not touchable. If I would ask Valeri, can you show me the smoking? Then he will say, yeah, I can show you smoke, but that's an object. The smoking itself, you cannot touch. You could touch the cigarette, you could touch the mouth, you could touch the smoke, but the smoking is something that's intouchable, so it's untangible for me. And an attribute, which is the result of this function, is a bit the same. It's also intangible. And we're going from left to right, from, let's say, screwdrivers to love. Love is also intangible, to business, to money. And what a company is interested in is money, and they want to have a perceived value by the customer. And you could see this as the super system, and a company serves a certain goal. So we're going from very concrete, tangible things that is too difficult to describe to a limited set of functions and attributes that are, let's say, definable. Okay, there are a lot, but it's not enormous. It's not infinite, I mean. And with those ways of thinking, you could try to define a company from a function and attribute point of view. And that's what I did. So actually, I combined function thinking and, on the other hand, attribute thinking to make an analysis on money, on, let's say, let's try to find out what's the company is actually doing. And the company, what's the company doing? Well, they're working, and working is also a verb. So it's not illogical to use, let's say, verbs to describe what a company is doing. And attributes will be those parameters where the result of the function will be shown. So that's also not illogical to see. So let's take it a step further. Let's go underground now. Let's first focus on functions. And for the case study for today, I decided to make a, let's say, a general exercise and a specific exercise, a case study that I will show you. But let's first start with company functions. So I could ask a company, I could ask you, what are the products of your company? You could say, I'm making teapots, and you can see them here. Okay, I could ask, what are the functions or processes that you're utilizing in your company to produce this teapot? And then I could ask also how many people are actually working on this teapot making. So these are rather simple questions, but I need to make a small remark. And the small remark is not that small in that sense that a traditional way of thinking on processes is you have a process step 1, and then you have process step 2, and then process step 3. But if you look at technologies, you can see something else in the company happening. You can see that in this case, I would have like an operator in the blue that is transporting a certain product somewhere to an end position. And then he needs to fill in a paper, that's the gray stuff, and then, or dark green, and then he has to go to the light green, that may be the basic process, something like cutting. And once he's finished, he needs to do something else, a specific technology, like scanning or something, and then he needs to transport it again. And then the next process step will start with a technology that will transport the product to, the person will have to administrate something. Maybe he has to scan something, then he will have a unique verb like cooling. In the case of teapot, we will be molding it. And then there will be another function. Then you will have transport. So you see, you have, if you look at the company as a set of processes, as normally is done with business process mapping, for instance, you're not coming to the point. The point I want to make now is, if you look at a company as a specific set of technologies, where if a person is doing it manually, let's say he's inspecting a product with his own eyes, we could say, okay, suppose this is also a type of technology. The point is, you could automate the manual operation of a person. And you could take a vision system that would replace the inspection, for instance. So in fact, all the verbs, technology verbs, could be regrouped, and that's what I call a function value map. So we're going to make some estimate now, because I want to have with you a very quick and dirty analysis. And let's do this very quickly. So if we look at the teapot, we could say, okay, this company is selling and advertising. They're making offers, finding distributors, storing material. We're in production already. They're molding the teapot. They're changing the mold. They need to change. You're painting it. You're transporting it as a general verb. There is some administration to be done. There is, of course, some packaging, and then some inspection. Most companies have something like that. And if you would say, let's count the number of people that are doing that, that's easily done. You might need to allocate it a bit more refined, but okay, you can do it quick and dirty. And then if you would take into account that in Belgium, and okay, every country will have a different numerical value for, let's say, the investment to person for 1 year. In Belgium, we're talking about 50,000 euros for operators and about 80,000 euros for white collars, roughly spoken. So if I would use this as money, and there's my money, I can calculate, where is my money going? And of course, I can add some raw material costs, investments that I have to make. And I've just added them here. And maybe I have some software costs. You can also add them. Maybe you have some machine costs and whatever. So you can zoom out all the different costs. So you come almost to your profit and loss table you could have as a manager or a director. You could take the complete costs of the company and allocate it to those verbs. Et voila, you just found what I call the function value map. That's the function value map. This is the verb money on a yearly basis investment that you're doing. And now the question is, which of those would you be willing to improve? And you can start with the time you would need, or let's say you could start with changing molds, which would be the most logical one from a lean SMED, all those techniques to quickly change dyes. But how much money will you gain? Well, we're talking about maybe 50,000 euros. If we would focus on molding the teapot, and we could come up with completely different methods to actually remold or quickly mold, or we would find new technologies that are able to do the same but quicker, with the same quality, of course, and safety, etc. We would have a breakthrough, because there we're talking about a lot more money. So the question is related to how many technologies do you know that are able to fulfill this function verb. And for me, TRIZ, as in an abstract way of thinking, should provide us some answers with that. It's not always so clear. TRIZ doesn't really actually give you the solutions. Unfortunately, not yet, but we could go so far. And this is exactly what I'm trying to do at companies today, trying to actually find the potential replacement or addition to drastically improve the working of the verb. And that's one focus. To give you a practical example, this is a company that is making very large cylinders for high voltage applications. They're injection molding very hard, very large cylinders. And this cylinder needs to be baked out. And in this bake out process, what they have to do is, well, they have to do a lot of things. You can see the real picture at the back. You can see some metal parts, cylinders. You can see like swords. So what they have to do first is they have to take the molded part, the injection molded part. They have to take it, and then they have to press the cylinders on top of it. Once they've done that, and I can show you with a virtual similarity. So this is a virtual of the rack that's behind there. So the first thing that they have to, let's say, assemble like a sword and a cylinder to get pressure on the product. And then they are taping using a tape machine. They are taping a tape cylindrically until it's completely taped. So it's completely packed and pressed with, let's say, 3 bars, something like that pressure. Once it's packed and pressured, they're putting it in a cart or a carriage and putting it in the oven. And then the reverse process starts. When it's coming out of the oven, they need to transport it, and they need to untape it. And what happens is, with the untaping, due to the taping, it's not always has the same strength. So they have unevenness in the product, and they need to grind it out. And so it takes a lot of time to grind out. And then after they have grinded out, they need to, let's say, deassemble or demount the product. And then they need to put all the parts in the rack again. So the function value map looks something like this. It takes them about 2.8 hours to make one. And the grinding takes a lot of time. So you can see where's the money is going. So this is a small example, by the way. But it's just to give you a practical example of function value map. So here you can see the money. So where we could start is bake out. And there, well, at that moment, in this case, I encountered the company saying, oh, but you can't change the oven. I said, why not? Yeah, you can't change that. Okay. So I'm limited to grinding, taping, and all the rest. So in fact, I needed to look at how can I avoid grinding and how can I avoid taping and untaping. And in fact, I used function modeling. With that, I came to the conclusion that if I would use a pressurized vessel, and we did the test, so we took a component, a cylinder, we put it in the autoclave, we put it in the baking, we put it into the oven, we took it out, and it was okay. So in fact, we bought a bigger autoclave of about 10,000 euros, and we had a breakthrough because we came from 2.8 hours to almost 10 minutes. So we came about 10 minutes, and with doing that, we had a breakthrough. You can see the finalized function value map here. So this is the end result after the exercise. We had a saving of about 300,000 euros in a couple of minutes almost, just by thinking it through. So it's a small example. But what most people forget to do is let's define what customers want or are doing with this teapot. And I could do the same. I could look at my revenue because my customers give me money because they pay me money for this teapot. And I could look at, okay, what are you doing with this teapot? And what are the verbs you are doing with this teapot? So I could look at all the verbs. This is what we're going to do now. So you could take a look at the analysis of the customer. The customer is going to buy the product. At this point, we don't have any revenue from that at this moment. That might be also already an idea, but okay. The customer has to unwrap and clean, and then the person will be using it to pour and keep it warm, keep the tea warm. But the person also has to clean it and also has to store it, and will have to use gloves because it's hot. And besides the teapot, you will need tea and water. And of course, a person will have to make tea. So you'll have to heat the water and pour it into the teapot. But verbs I don't like, and that will happen, is it might break, or the person might get bored, or the color might decolorize, or he might have to wait for delivery because he wants to have it very quickly, and it takes a long time. So what I've done in the last column is I've allocated the revenue as good as possible to see where's the money coming from. But I see a lot of potential because I could start inventing better teapots with glovey tea-like solutions, or maybe I could come up with some new ideas. And this is why I'm telling you this. So the company could focus on decreasing costs, but they can also focus on decreasing the revenue. And that's what I'm missing sometimes. So this is one example. I think it's clear what I'm trying to say here. Now let's focus on attributes. So what's an attribute? Well, oh, it was too quick, sorry. What are the attributes? Well, we could start using the functions we just defined. In our function value map, in our company, we defined the functions. And from those functions, I could start defining pragmatically what are the most critical attributes. And the easiest way to think about attributes to start with is to think about the things that go wrong, because most companies will, besides the functions and the time you need to build something, things go wrong in companies. So things will go wrong, and what we call wrong, I could also, the money that I'm losing there, I could allocate to my attributes. So I could choose like the bad attributes, the things that go wrong or went wrong, and use that to allocate my money to. So that's what I'm going to do. We're going to list up all the internal mistakes, but also the mistakes that go to the customer. And let's try to estimate the failure demand. And this means that if the customer is not getting what he wants, we might be losing customers. So suppose you would, as a customer, phone to a company and you're not getting an answer, and you have to phone back and phone back and phone back. Next time you say, I'm not going to phone that company. You never get an answer. So I'll try a new one. So if you're in a market that has a lot of competition and you're not providing service to your customers, then you're losing. So that's the idea of failure demand. And this is what I'm using to, let me see, to come up and go to the complete analysis of attributes. So I'll give an example immediately, but if you look at attributes, and at this moment you're looking at failed attributes, this failed attribute, we could allocate, let's say, the material cost to it, but we could also allocate the labor costs. I could ask, okay, how much products did we lose molding tea pots? We could have lost, let's say, at the startup and at the end, we might have lost 1,000 teapots. On the other hand, how much money did we lose with correcting the products in our company because something went wrong and we needed to correct it? And of course, the other way to stick money to the attributes would be like use both as material or labor, or use the selling price of your product. You could say if you have a product that needs to be scrapped, and it would not have been scrapped, you could have sold it at the selling price. So you're losing a selling price. It depends a bit on the viewpoint, but let me give you an example. This is one example. This is an example from our teapot. So this was the analysis that we just did. So this is the verbs, people, money. And from this, I'm going to the next level saying, okay, these are the verbs. So what product errors could go wrong? Well, I can list them up. I could say, oh, my name was spelled wrong. I have a wrong type, have a wrong address, a damaged packaging that the customer is getting, a wrong shape. It was not filled completely, the wrong color, and etc. You can quickly, normally people can, as I encountered, quickly define, let's say pragmatically first, all the attributes, missed attributes or failed attributes from a function point of view. You could also try to define the internal errors. You could say, yeah, but we also have always wrong order data, and people have price changes, and sometimes they forget to do that. And you can list up a lot of internal mistakes. So with that, I could start using, let's say, the money from the verbs. So column total cost is still the money from the verbs. And I could try to estimate how much percentage of this money is going to the wrong side of it. So in this case, I would say 30% of our time we're actually making mistakes. In fact, I encountered at several companies that it's sometimes around 60% of the time. So it's much more than you think if you start really listening to customers and understanding what's happening inside the company. So this is a, let's say, a theoretical way to do it from a white collar and a operator point of view. So this is one way to do it, but I can show you another one with an example. And the example is from a company that's making sleeves. I think you will all know the left, at the bottom, you can see like a sleeve, which is injection molded and coated part. And we're talking about the coating. And this company is building or making 78 million sleeves a year. And we're talking about 2010. So today they're making much more. And at that moment, when I was there, they had about 30 operators, some other white collars. And the production manager, at least the plant manager, told me, you can only look at senior coaters, the coaters that have experience coating. Why? He didn't want me to come up with a training matrix or something, let's say, not silly, but he actually wanted a technological solution, want a big solution. I said, okay. And he told me, well, listen, only the seniors, if you look at the seniors, their scrap percentage is about 2.3%, which is a lot of money because it's 300,000 euros. So, ooh, that's a lot. So don't imagine, and don't forget, all the people, they were having about 1 million euro as scrap. So we're talking about misprinted sleeves, and they had to, let's say, get rid of it. The plant manager said, can you decrease this to 1%? I would be very surprised if you were able to do that, but I'm curious to see if you're able. So on the right-hand side, you can see part of the process that we're talking about, silk screens. You can imagine that as a screen, you put the paint on top of it, and you have like something that rubs the paint through the screen. And so you have a screen printing. And in the meantime, the system is going round, and the sleeve, the screen is going like this. So you have a combined action. And what we did was, we first tried to understand where's the money going. And how we did that was, we asked them, okay, what type of mistakes do you have? And they gave us a set of mistakes. I said, well, I'm not satisfied with those mistakes. So in fact, we decided, and sorry for the Dutch at this moment, but we decided to expand all the potential mistakes they could make in the machines. And we were able to define that rather quickly and easy. It's not so very difficult to do that. Once we had that, we started actually counting how many mistakes we found during a month, and we extrapolated that for a whole year, and this was the result. So, and this was only counting not the hours, but only the cost of one product, which was about 50 cents, something like that. So you can see we had a lot of mistakes going on. And then we used some, I would call it at this moment, TRIZ thinking. And one of them, I'll show you one of them, which is, the second one is called scratches. And we're having about 60,000 euros of scratches. So we try to understand where's the operational zone and time. Where does it start to exist? Where can you create scratches on your product and you have an issue? And what happened was, we actually found that one of the bunkers that was able to orient the sleeves, that something was missing in the machine. We had some luck, okay, but we were able to save almost 60,000 euros in one blow. And the complete thinking, the plant manager was so sucked up with the idea of, wow, TRIZ is fantastic, that he wanted to do a complete analysis of the complete process. We did. And he used this model, all these models he used to improve the company during the years. And today he's having, let's say, around 0.1% of scrap. And he actually applied and looked for technologies, and we helped him for some extent with that to solve it. So we had a quick increase, and we were able to actually increase for 1% increase. I mean, it's a decrease. I think I wrote it wrongly, but okay. I think you understand what I'm saying. And this was only for the seniors. So if you would extrapolate that for all the people, it was a lot of money. So that's a practical case where I just wanted to point out and summarize. On the one hand, you can take verbs. On the one hand, you can take attributes. We've looked at the internal attributes, but what about the external customer attributes? Well, you can do the same. You can actually do the same. And let me show you this. So you can say, okay, what are the verbs? Oh, we discussed it already. And per verb, we can try to define what are the attributes that are going wrong. And we know we have customer complaints, so we could allocate the money and we're losing from customers complaining and try to allocate to the issues we see. And this is what you can see here. So we've defined some pragmatic attributes. And this is a list. I'm not going in detail now, but here you can see how much money we, let's say, estimated on a yearly basis on losing revenue. And if we would solve that, we could gain a lot of money. So to summarize, and I'm at the end of this session, it's almost 8 o'clock, so I promise you to stop at 8 o'clock. So in a company, you could start doing improvement projects. You could start anywhere. There's a lot of issues going on everywhere. But you could pause and see, okay, what are the verbs? What are the attributes? And how is this with my customer? Make a complete value map, as I've shown you a couple of times already. And then from that value map, see where we can get the biggest gain. Maybe you should focus with all the resources of the company on those issues first. So instead of focusing on low gain, and if you can change something, well, this is how normally it's done. But what I want, or maybe what you also want, is a high gain and a possible change. Because it's not because we found the verbs with the money, we know we can change. This is the next step that TRIZ needs to assist us in or with. So we're not sure to begin with that we will find a solution. But if you don't look at the money first, you might start with an issue that's not a lot of money. You have a big breakthrough, but the gain will be very low. So it would be a waste of time. So to summarize again, customer, internal, function, attributes, make the money, make the overview, and that's it. Okay, maybe some last remarks. And this is something I learned from John SEDDON. Knowledge is the antidote for risk and failure demand. And I've learned that TRIZ is able to help me understand how my process works. So first understand and then improve, and not the other way around. But before understand and improve, find where the money is. And John SEDDON said, without knowledge and insight, programs such as Lean or Six Sigma, they can actually drastically fail. And they actually also can put the company at risk. That's what we don't want. So most programs only promote concepts. That's what we don't want. TRIZ is not a concept. I think TRIZ is methodologies trying to help you to understand what's actually going on inside technology or even business as you will know by now. And slogans such as centralize and simplify and standardize should be something like understand first, improve what you've learned, and spread it to everyone. So why do customers ask us to help? Well, you can ask Valerie or myself if you have some issues with the tools we've shown you or the methodologies we've shown you. We can help you to correctly apply it if you don't know it by heart, or if you would say I have some blind spots and I don't know what to do, we can assist. And of course, if you want to have it done very quickly, we can help you. And maybe you've tried it, but you were not fully successful yet. So maybe we can assist in some exercises. So this is why customers are asking Valerie and me today to assist them in actually helping them with the innovation process. Okay. Any questions? I've not checked the chat so far. Maybe I should do that. Maybe Valerie, you can come online also. Yeah, thanks.
Well, I'm online, definitely. And
yeah,
what I want to see is that we don't have anything public in chat. We are a small group of people, and everybody has access to a microphone. So that's we can speak out, definitely. Well, we have some time. So maybe I will a little bit clarify. So if when you're talking about the improvement, well, you know, in TRIZ we have such tools as, for example, again, function analysis. We have flow analysis. We have main parameters of value analysis. So there are multi-screen analysis. So basically, there are quite a lot of them. But I believe that people who are here, what is the main difference, right? Well, what you can say about, let's say, between function value mapping and the function analysis, which is very well known and one of the biggest tools in TRIZ. Could you just outline the difference?
Yes.
What's the advantage of when you function value mapping?
So
what's the main, not advantage, but a difference?
Yeah, the difference. Yeah. So the difference for me, a function analysis or a function attribute analysis is something that you would do after you have defined which verb, technological verb, you would see is going a lot of money or taking a lot of money. And then you could use function attribute analysis to further understand how the technology works and where maybe the time or the money or the resources are going. So this would be like a next step for me. They go hand in hand. But first things first, which is if we want to give a company a lot of gain, we first need to understand where's the money going. And once we have a quick understanding on where the money is going, we can say, okay, there's a lot of potential in those verbs and or attributes. We can go one step further with the full TRIZ potential to take those issues, those verbs and those attributes that will gain us the most money. And that's the next step. So in fact, the difference is the function value map is only an analysis that gives you a financial analysis, that gives you an idea about the money. And that's it. It's only used for the money and nothing more than that. And the next step is fully understanding how the technology is working. And once you understand, you will come up with some solutions, or we hope you can come up with some solutions. So it's completely split up for me.
So if I understand it correctly, just a second, then a function value mapping makes sense to apply to the entire organization.
Yeah.
First, to identify those, let's say, spots where you can then jump in and go into detail.
Yeah, to have the biggest gain. Yeah, so it makes sense to first look at where's the money, and if you would find, okay, there is a lot of money to be gained.
Okay.
And you could also have something like this verb, like molding. We're spending like 600,000 euros to molding, and we have a lot of scrap, a lot of issues, and mistakes that are happening in production and things that go wrong with this molding. So there might be something wrong with the molding process. And this is not an apparent way of thinking, because lean lets you focus on eliminating waste, but they will never eliminate the value verb. And that's what you could do with TRIZ. You could get the value verb and see, yeah, this value verb is okay, why the customer is giving me money for, but maybe if I would like have a jump or a big solution on how to do it much, much better, we would gain more money. Our margin would get bigger and we would be able to sell maybe more. Focused internally, but you could do the same analysis in a research and development exercise towards the customer. Also looking there, where's the money there?
Okay, thank you. There is a question from Victor Fay.
Okay.
Have you ever tried this analysis on your own consulting business? If yes, what functions, attributes did you identify and improve?
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. Yes, in fact, I did apply it. And what I came up with was that the attribute would be scalability. And what is the scalability of a consulting or a training business? Well, that's very low and that's very poor. As a consultant, you need to go to a company, start all over again, promote some solutions and hope they catch up and go the whole way. And that's difficult to do. But what are other ways to do it? Or how can you scale it? And then the way would be, okay, write a book. So I don't have them here by hand, but I've written 2 books. I think Jan will have read them. So I've written 2 books, but I also came up with, how can I scale? I come up with the ideas. So what I did was I stopped with my consulting and I started with a startup company, because from my consulting, I found out that there are a lot of issues in many companies that weren't solved. So I decided to quit my consulting and jump to a next level of making products myself and helping with the same methodology. What I do is actually, I first want to make a complete business case. So with my new company, I'm making first a complete business case. So I know they will gain a lot of money. And because they will gain a lot of money, and I'm there at this moment, I can say, okay, I'll charge you 5 to 10% of this gain you will have. And believe me, there is a big business case for me too. So this is the thinking that resulted in my own business. But this is for me. I think Valeri will and surely will have some other ideas on how he's using a bit the same thinking on his own process.
Well, I also would like to say that this is this analysis on your own thinking, on your own business, but he also has experience with delivering this analysis for his customers as well. So, from Binhan, why you concerned more on attributes instead of parameters?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your question. What I would like to say first is, I think we need to define a bit what is the difference between attributes and parameters. But the first thing you need to do is use the attribute definitions of the company itself to define what they think pragmatically is the biggest attribute to use. So it's like the specific, it's like in the approach of the matrix, in the sense that first define your specific problem, then generalize it towards the parameters, and then jump to the inventive principles and jump back to your own solution. So it's a bit similar like I'm doing at this moment. I want to have their language, how they see what is going on. And in fact, I gave some other examples during the business training seminar last weekend, I think it was, or the week before, where you got some other ideas on parameter and attribute analysis. I hope this is sufficient as an answer, but maybe you want to know more. Please, please ask.
Let me add a little bit.
Yeah.
If you look from the point of view of a general ontological approach, parameter is an instance of a higher level of concept, and a higher level of concept is an attribute. Yeah, because attributes can include parameters as well, but attributes could be something that more than parameters, right? So they, for example, attributes could be qualitative changes. Like if you take, let's say, well, whatever you can take a cup, right? Cup, you can describe any cup with a sort of attributes. And the attribute could be, for example, comfortable cup and an uncomfortable cup. This is attribute. It has two meanings, right? You see comfortable and uncomfortable, but these are not parameters. If you go to the level of parameters, you would say, what would be the volume of the cup? What would be this let's say, color of the cup? But then again, the cup can be made from plastic. It can be made from the metal. And the plastic and metals are not parameters, but they are materials. And material could be an attribute of a cup, you see? So the attribute is broader than just a parameter. Yeah.
Jan has a different question. Since TRIZ and all the techniques are existing for quite some time, and also the ideas of formal models and also technologies, is there like an automation to link verbs to technologies? Because that could also help, and thank you very much, to scale the consulting. You would be right. But I don't have any knowledge besides Goldfire, which is I think an evolution of Tech Optimizer that is using, as I know it, patents to define a verb, and you can find solutions in patents. So it will depend on what is your database that you're going to use to find solutions. So that's the biggest question, I think, to go ahead with this question would be, okay, where would we find a set of information, which data could be used to come up with a complete set of data points and technologies thus that would help us to come up with a solution once we add a verb. And I know from experience that Goldfire is still existing today, but I have never worked with it. I tried, but I was not allowed because I was a consultant. So they only sold it to big companies, unfortunately. And at a certain moment, I was thinking to make my own Goldfire. In fact, I started with that, and we're going to use a model from Leuven that was called the McNo algorithm, which was a linguistic semantic approach to find words that are close to each other. So I was starting to make my own model at a certain moment, but I didn't have the budget to continue. I'm still interested though, and I know already some companies today that actually provide a complete search of technology. So I can suggest you some companies in Ghent, Jan, that actually do this, but they don't start from the verb. So the point is, those companies, those startups that are doing this type of work, they don't have the TRIZ knowledge. So you see, there's also always some key missing. But that's my viewpoint. Maybe Valeri and Valeri Sure will have a broader view on the world and see what is existing today.
Just looking at time limitations, I would say that this, of course, Goldfire still exists, and it exists on a broad scale because it was purchased by IHS. If you know IHS Market, it's one of the largest American technology intelligence and information companies. Well, the only problem is that they sell corporate licenses, and this is quite expensive. I think that a single license would cost around 100k euros at least. The other ways, the TRIZ automation requires a lot, like I already mentioned. There are different software tools which actually help, but not very much because, well, this is a separate story. We can speak about it maybe later on because right now is we are time limited. But again, check Goldfire and IHS, you will see it. Also, there was a question about could a link to the ontology as mentioned. Well, basically, ontology is a part of philosophy, and this identifies the knowledge structure. What is general knowledge, how knowledge is represented, and so on. The easiest way to check it is object-oriented programming, where objects, right, in a software, if you're familiar with that, they just precisely have objects. Object has attributes, attribute has values. And one of these attributes could be parameters, which means that these are measurable. Well, there are plenty of links if you check it on Google. I just don't know any specific links. There are plenty of them. Okay.
So I hope you all enjoyed the thoughts, and you got some ideas popping up from it. Okay, bye-bye, Victor.
Victor, bye.
So maybe
I think we have some minutes if there are any more questions.
Maybe we could also take a picture. You could take a picture if everybody would, let's say, put on the complete video.
Definitely we can. If
yeah, let's do that. Can you take a picture, Valerie?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Not many. Some people might not have cameras and so.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But anyway, that's what we have.
Oh,
okay.
Is it? It's not like we say hi or something.
We'll say hi. Very good. Very good. Okay, I don't see any messages coming. I think it's a bit late. We already powered a lot of information. And we are both available for any questions outside of this session, definitely. And perhaps next, we could also evolve it and run another webinar where we can just focus on a specific case. And maybe you can make an exercise, right? Playing with a case online together in a group, with a group. So it could be a possibility as well.
Yeah, sure.
So we understand the concept better.
I hope it was a bit clear. It would be interesting to get some feedback from you guys to see if you got the drift, so to speak, and you see where the differences are.
Fantastic.
Jan is saying something. Okay.
Yeah, you see, I don't know if we're allowed to talk over the phone.
Yeah, sure.
No, for me it was quite interesting to hear what direction you're going into, and I can say that if I look at some of the research we're doing on automating assembly, that we're actually taking exactly the same direction, meaning we now start from tasks, skills, and try to map them, say, in a independent way to machines or functions or resources. And actually then you also have the mapping issue on how are you going to take a certain function and map it to either something new, like you would do in TRIZ, or something that is existing. How do you define that? How do you model that? So there's quite some challenges there that we're trying to tackle now, that I see a lot of similarities. If you then just take it one step higher, you can actually, like, if you solve it for the factory floor, you can go down, you actually can reuse some of the ideas that Yves just mentioned. So I kind of like that one, and I've written a few things down on things to take into account for that research that we didn't consider right now. So thank you for that.
Yeah, great. Are you working with Sonia?
Yeah, partly, but yeah, but Sonia is now more in a business developer. kind of role. So, but yeah, I'm in the core lab where she is in.
Yeah. Give her my regard also, by the way. So it would be interesting to cooperate because we're talking about the company called Flanders Make, which is a research group situated in Flanders that helps manufacturing companies to, let's say, implement Industry 4.0 technologies. And the approach we just discussed could be like a generalized approach for any different type. It doesn't matter what type of production or manufacturing or production system you might have. The verbs are, you're able to define all the verbs and match kind of an automation with it. And in the same time, calculate how much money you're spending on it. That would be very interesting to do on a higher level. But I'm not sure if it would be possible, Jan, to cooperate on one way or the other. But I would be very glad and also very to further explore and discuss the opportunities if there would be any.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm convinced there are some things, and even if it's not just in a project, just to get some of your ideas within our organization would already be nice. So I think there's definitely some opportunities there. Great. And if we can match it to a project, then there's budget also. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Then we're talking about the money again.
Belgians.
It's either that or the chocolates and the beer.
Yeah. I didn't want to spoil you much with this, so.
I'm Dutch. I'm just with water.
Yeah. So, Kirill, was it okay for you? Did you get some ideas?
Yes. But just thank you for a fresh look from the process. It's really different from what I'm doing, but it's quite interesting.
Kirill, now you see there is an approach to take the snapshot of the entire organization and create a function value map within the organization. So you will have then the program for TRIZ improvements within that organization for 10 years ahead at least.
Yeah.
But most important, what I find here, most important is that you identify the core parts where you should focus on, not just jumping from here to there, but creating a general map first, and then go into the critical points on the map. That's what I find really valuable in this approach.
Yes. Other presentation will be available?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I will send the PDF of the presentation to all the participants. But Kirill, in your case, I send you via Messenger, so it would be nice if you would send Valerie your email address.
Oh, yes. Well, I think Valerie have my address.
Yes, I do.
I'll send it. Okay. And send it to you.
Yeah,
no problem.
So you'll be able to get a presentation. That's no problem. We also published a paper on this on TRIZ in
it was 2000 in Portugal.
Yeah,
2013, something like that.
Yeah, it's something like that. 2012, 2013. Yeah, I forgot. So there is also a paper. I will also send the paper along with the with this presentation to get some more background.
Oh, of course, thank you very much.
We can elaborate much more, and I can give you much more cases on where I've actually applied this. So in some companies, actually, I go much deeper into the details of the functions because I want to calculate more precise than starting from just what is the cost of a person. And using a time study is what I also use to get in depth of where's the money going, but more in detail. Because the more you understand how people work, the better you understand what are the verbs they are actually executing, and you can allocate the money to it, the better you're able to find solutions also. So I'm really into the strange thing of getting into details and then zooming out and get a bigger picture. And managers love it because it's a summary of the complete factory. So say, wow. And sometimes they are astonished in that sense that I had a company where I did the analysis and I told them, hey, listen, your biggest verb is transportation. So you're a transportation company. But they weren't, they were a coating company. So you get some ideas on where the money is going. And then they say, yeah, but we don't want that. Yeah, so you can improve. So you know where to improve first. But okay, considering the time, I don't know, Bing, if you want to give some ideas. And then...
All right, and thank you for your presentation. And in fact, business trees will be widely used for the measurement and for the marketing, forecasting, and for the city planning and other fields for it. Nowadays, I have a case in progress about the government affairs in on business trees.
Okay.
Maybe I can think we can expand the fields for the business trees and to develop some new tools and some new processes for it.
Would be great.
Certainly,
Yeah.
certainly yes. Or integrate something that was already there,
Yeah.
or have a sort of combinations of complementary tools. Definitely.
Yes, and I think yes, as I mentioned on the business trees conference, I think we will unify the terms and unify the basic process for the business trees.
Right. Right.
Maybe that is the important thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we stay in touch on that.
Okay. Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess the time is already up, so we should wrap it up.
Okay. Okay.
So you will receive the presentation together with the paper, and we will also give you a link to the link with the video will be posted, I think, via Valeri, most probably.
Yeah, we will make it public, definitely.
So thank you very much and have a nice
Thank you, everyone.
day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.